In April 1943, at Camp Hereford in Texas, Serente Joseph Morelli's hand shook slightly while holding the pencil as he penned a letter destined for his mother in Sicily, one that wouldn't arrive for 8 months. The sentiments he expressed would have appeared unbelievable mere weeks before. "Mama, they treat us to meals as if we're honored visitors, not captives. Fresh white bread each day, along with meat and produce, more sustenance than we'd encountered during 2 full years of conflict. These Americans remain a puzzle to me." Gazing out from the barracks window, he observed brilliant electric bulbs illuminating the vast Texas landscapes, tractors tilling the soil, and U.S. sentries exchanging smokes with their Italian detainees. It all flew in the face of the assurances from Mussolini's propaganda machine. Italy had been portrayed as forging a revived Roman Empire. The United States was depicted as frail and fractured, on the brink of downfall. Nevertheless, in this state of confinement, the Italian troops encountered prosperity that surpassed their wildest dreams. When the initial group of Italian captives reached Camp Hereford that April, they formed part of roughly 51,000 Italian prisoners of war who eventually set foot on American soil. The earliest Italian service personnel had started coming to the U.S. in November 1942, after the Allies' push into North Africa. These individuals had given themselves up in Tunisia as General Giovanni Messi's initial army crumbled following prolonged shortages of essentials. They anticipated severe handling, compelled work, or even execution. Rather, they encountered what countless others would subsequently label in correspondence to loved ones as something akin to luxury. The downfall in Tunisia had unfolded rapidly. Following extended combat amid North Africa's arid expanses, the Italian units confronted insurmountable challenges. Deliveries from Italy never materialized. Their German partners regarded them as disposable, while British and U.S. troops advanced relentlessly from both flanks. Of the 275,000 Axis personnel who yielded in May 1943, about 50,000 were Italians. These detainees from North Africa became the foundation for the expanding population of 51,000 Italian service members in America, bolstered by arrivals from later engagements in Sicily and on the Italian peninsula. The path from surrender to astonishment commenced in Tunisia's assembly sites. The precision of American operations swiftly captivated the Italians. Health checks proved comprehensive. Numerous received proper treatment for the first time in ages. Fresh outfits supplanted garments that were mostly rags at this point, yet the provisions astonished them above all. Following periods of bare subsistence allotments, the U.S. forces offered loaves of white bread, preserved meats, sweetened coffee, and even chocolate. The Liberty vessels transporting them over the Atlantic were vessels looping back after offloading materials for the European front. Instead of returning vacant, they ferried personnel, up to 30,000 prisoners of war monthly by the summer of 1943. The fortnight-long crossing of the ocean delivered the initial organized challenge to fascist misinformation. The vessels stood as testaments to U.S. industrial might, ships churned out in volumes unattainable by Italy. Italian service members learned that radar systems, glimpsed only on elite British vessels before, equipped every standard American freighter. Meals in the ship's galley delivered constant surprises. U.S. crew enjoyed ice cream dispensers, endless coffee supplies, newly baked bread, and ample proteins. They tossed aside scraps that would have been prized luxuries back home. Such effortless excess highlighted riches defying belief. Upon docking at harbors such as Norfolk, Virginia, or along the Pacific seaboard, the Italian service personnel stepped into a realm surpassing their fantasies. The waterfront facilities extended over thousands of acres, with piers running for miles. Scores of ships bustled with cargo in unison. Powered cranes hoisted burdens that would demand herds of laborers in Italy. Yet the everyday affluence proved most remarkable. Vast lots brimmed with vehicles belonging to the workforce. In Italy, automobiles were the domain of the elite alone. Every structure hummed with power from the grid. Retailers showcased items absent from Italian markets since the war's outset. The detainees journeyed inland via comfortable rail cars, not livestock transports. They occupied compartments featuring padded seating, illumination from bulbs, and onboard eateries. Venturing deeper into the American interior, unveiled a country brimming with inconceivable riches. Even modest villages boasted electrical service, personal cars, and stores stocked to overflowing. Plants operated around the clock on reliable current. Remote homesteads utilized machinery and wired connections. Camp Hereford served solely for Italian captives, unlike sites such as Camp Hearn, which mainly housed German prisoners of war. The facility included 4 sections with sleeping quarters, dining areas, and medical facilities, all encircled by razor wire barriers patrolled by weapon-bearing watchmen. At maximum capacity, it confined 3,160 individuals. Just within Hereford, 2,580 Italian service members resided, establishing it as a key hub for Italian detainees in Texas. These installations surpassed the quality of Italian armed forces facilities. Lodging featured powered lamps, steaming baths, sanitary lavatories, and warmth systems. Medical centers held devices unseen in Italy for years prior to the conflict, such as radiographic apparatus and contemporary operating instruments. For the Italian captives, the setups bordered on idyllic. While episodes of abuse occurred occasionally, particularly against the NS prisoners of war enjoyed well-maintained quarters, access to warm showers, plentiful provisions, and the chance to use wages from their jobs at the nearby post exchange. The meals left them astonished. Every day brought 3 full courses featuring proteins, produce, grains, dairy, and frequently sweets to finish. Festive banquets during holidays surpassed even their pre-conflict experiences back home. Cooks noted discarding surplus grub each day that outstripped what entire households in Italy might obtain over a week. The situation shifted dramatically on September 8, 1943, as Italy capitulated and inked a truce with the Allied forces. Under Marshal Pietro Badoglio's leadership, the administration flipped allegiance, proclaiming hostilities against Germany by October 13. Following the capitulation, the premier directed Italian POWs to align with the Allies. Starting in February 1944, the U.S. Army Service Forces extended an invitation to Italian prisoners in America to enlist in what evolved into the Italian service units. Options included staying in captivity or enlisting in these ISUs to support U.S. troops in support capacities away from battle lines. The uptake proved tremendous. From the roughly 51,000 Italian POWs detained across the U.S., then more than 45,000 opted in, dispatching them to labor-scarce regions nationwide. They committed oaths to oppose their ex-German comrades and gained perks that reshaped their circumstances. Though still labeled as POWs on paper, they donned attire distinguished merely by an Italy insignia on the left arm and affixed to the usual field hat. Additionally, they got a $24 monthly allowance, with just 1/3 in actual currency. The remainder came as vouchers redeemable on site for essentials and personal goods. In California, where conflict lingered vividly until late 1945 amid fierce Pacific clashes, Italian POWs aiding the crusade were welcomed with particular warmth. The robust Italian-American heritage, rooted in the gold rush days among seafarers, growers, and vintners, warmly adopted them. Perhaps the most striking tale involved those posted to Angel Island, who funded and hosted recurring dances in a San Francisco venue using their own funds. With paychecks in hand, they arranged weekend soirees that grew into prominent gatherings. Local women showed up under supervision, yet keen to connect with the Italian servicemen. These POWs toiled in California's vast farmlands, encountering agriculture on an unimaginable scale. Individual estates dwarfed entire Italian regions. Automated reapers handled tasks that would require hordes of workers. Members of the Italian ISUs emerged as vital assets to the U.S. wartime push. They prepped vessels for the Normandy invasion, gathered yields that might otherwise spoil, and serviced gear using skills honed in North Africa. Between 1943 and 1945, these units delivered over 90 million worker days of effort in America. Economically, the initiative spared the federal government around $230 million. At the Brooklyn Army Terminal, Italian POWs packed gear destined for Europe's emancipation. They labored with zeal, aware each cargo edged their homeland toward release from Nazi control. In farming zones, their efforts preserved vital crops sustaining the U.S. and its partners. By June 1943, more than 14,500 Italian POWs occupied facilities scattered throughout the country. Post-surrender, as the initiative grew, these laborers proved irreplaceable in diverse fields. Romances bloomed amid the rules. Italian captives encountered U.S. women at religious gatherings, sanctioned outings, and on the job. In Ogden, Utah, a community chapel ran supervised mixers every weekend for the POWs, while Italian-American kin could drop by on Sundays. Such bonds hit snags. Army rules banned unions between captives and U.S. nationals. Still, affection persisted. Understanding clergy conducted rites. Pairs sustained ties via correspondence. Numerous ladies trailed their Italian suitors back to Italy post-release, wedded there, and resettled in the States as spouses of documented arrivals. In districts rich with Italian-American residents, that diaspora offered vital support. POWs discovered adoptive clans who hosted them for weekend feasts, assisted with missives to kin, and nurtured ties enduring long past the armistice. The 1943 holiday season brought deep sentimental resonance. U.S. Congregations and groups dispatched care kits to sites, stocked with smokes, confections, and hygiene goods, indulgences rare even for locals. Neighborhoods arranged feasts and festivities. At Camp Hereford, area parishes sang Neapolitan Yuletide tunes. Catholic houses of worship conducted vigils at midnight, delivered in both Latin and Italian. The holiday meal at Christmas featured turkey, ham, a variety of accompaniments, and sweets, an extravagance that Italians hadn't encountered since prior to World War I. This generosity extended to former foes, dismantled the final traces of fascist rhetoric claiming American frailty. Captive Italians penned letters home, recounting the lavishness displayed only by a country assured of triumph. Come 1944, countless Italian service members joined learning initiatives. They delved into English language, U.S. history, math, and practical trades. Institutions offered remote classes. Facilities screened movies from Hollywood and issued periodicals that progressed from basic bulletins to in-depth journals exploring democratic principles and rebuilding after the conflict. These captives erected performance spaces, assembled musical ensembles, and crafted artworks that endure at numerous sites to this day. Across different sites, they fashioned intricate water features, adorned walls with frescoes, and raised places of worship that continue to attract sightseers. Far from amateurish detainee efforts, these creations showcase the finesse of Italy's creative heritage. Upon hearing of the D-Day assault on Normandy on June 6, 1944, the Italian service members erupted in exuberant festivities. Though these were once adversaries invading France, they also represented the forces that would rescue Italy from German control. The Italians volunteered for additional duties, packing cargo and inscribing crates with slogans urging Rome's release and the demise of Nazis. As Rome was captured on June 4, 1944, Italian service members and Italian-American citizens organized shared revelries throughout the United States. Past opponents had united against the Nazi regime. At Camp Hereford, detainees and nearby inhabitants conducted a triumphant religious gathering attended by thousands. Across their internment, Italian service members encountered authentic American compassion. When updates arrived about relatives killed in Italian airstrikes, U.S. overseers and leaders participated in remembrance ceremonies. Community households took in captives who had forfeited all, making sure they faced no isolation amid celebrations. Healthcare provisions left a profound impression on the captives. Italian physicians collaborated with U.S. healthcare teams, acquiring methods and accessing tools absent in Italy for years. Detainees underwent surgeries and therapies typically reserved for elites back home. The divide between German and Italian captives widened following Italy's capitulation. Whereas German detainees clung to Nazi doctrines, Italians warmly accepted their role as partners in the Allied cause, laboring with zeal toward success. In March 1944, the American forces dispatched 1-800 members of the Italian service units to Boston. Initially settled at Camp McKay in South Boston, the group faced cool reception from residents. Boston's Italian-American populace at first regarded the detainees warily, concerned they might tarnish the group's standing as devoted U.S. citizens. Yet change arrived swiftly. The Italian detainees demonstrated diligent labor at the Boston embarkation harbor. They contributed vocals to parish ensembles, prepared dishes for events, and shared genuine Italian recipes with descendants of immigrants unfamiliar with true homeland flavors. Due to escalating friction with South Boston locals, 300 Italian service unit participants relocated to Pedex Island in Boston Harbor shortly after. There, they gained greater autonomy, with trusted individuals permitted weekend excursions by boat to Boston's North End, frequently sharing meals with Italian-American kin. Italian service members observed U.S. manufacturing and farming output that bordered on the unbelievable. In California's Central Valley, individual operations yielded more than whole Italian regions. Automated reapers handled in mere hours tasks that demanded weeks in Italy. They beheld flawless produce tossed aside for slight imperfections. Sometimes full harvests were buried to stabilize markets. Such excess, which could have averted famine in Italy, here underscored boundless productivity. The nonchalant approach to plenty astonished them deepest. Laborers discarded partially consumed meals, kept lamps lit in vacant areas, and commuted by car to jobs, habits unimaginable in ration-scarce wartime Italy, where households scraped by on slim allotments. Males were assigned to farmland or vessels, drawing $8 monthly. This humble pay felt bountiful to those with empty pockets, and they stashed it diligently for post-war remittances to family. Italian prisoners of war imprinted lasting influences on U.S. traditions. They popularized bocce ball in neighborhoods that continue the game today. They instructed locals in preparing true pasta and pizza, paving the way for an industry now worth billions. Their ornamental contributions, fountains, wall art, and sanctuaries, persist in scores of spots. Periodicals produced by service members at the camps revealed striking evolution. Pieces shifted from Italian updates to explorations of democratic systems, U.S. agriculture practices, and visions for recovery post-war. These materials spread across facilities, disseminating concepts on elected rule and contemporary approaches. On July 16, 1944, the 38th and 40th Italian Quartermaster Services Companies reached Rock Island Arsenal via train from Pine Camp, New York. Their efforts in upkeep and logistical support turned out to be immensely beneficial, prompting leaders to seek postponements in sending them back home once the conflict concluded. In farming areas, Italian POWs showcased skills honed over centuries of agrarian heritage. They shared methods that enhanced farming practices in the United States. Contributions at canning facilities, dockyards, and army warehouses allowed countless U.S. personnel to shift to frontline roles. Members of the Italian service units likewise released American troops from rear echelon tasks, enabling them to join the fight. Thanks to the help from these Italian units, the need to conscript additional American males diminished significantly. The extent of the Italian POW involvement in the U.S. At its height in May 1945, the country detained 425,871 POWs in total, 3,133 Germans, 5,273 Italians, and 3,915 Japanese. Among them, 51,000 Italians were distributed across 21 facilities in 18 states. Their labor added up to 90 million man-days of effort. This resulted in $230 million in savings on workforce expenses. Numerous Americans were liberated for battlefield assignments. Vital crop yields were protected from spoilage. In terms of assimilation, 45,000 Italians enlisted in service units. Escape attempts stayed below 1%. Countless prisoners kept in touch with U.S. households long after the war. A significant number came back later as lawful newcomers. The process of sending them home started in late 1945, yet it advanced gradually. The nation required their manpower during the shift to civilian life. Numerous Italian POWs were reluctant to depart. They had discovered camaraderie and prospects in America, even as their homeland lay in ruins under occupation. As transports commenced, whole towns gathered to bid farewell. In places like Camp Hereford and similar sites, regional publications described the loss of companions rather than captives. Bonds developed in confinement, whether amorous or friendly, now confronted parting. From December 1945 through July 1946, Italian POWs sailed back to Italy, equipped with insights into U.S. governance, farming innovations, and manufacturing processes. They unintentionally shaped Italy's rebuilding efforts after the war, applying lessons absorbed while imprisoned. True to commitments, numerous ex-POWs resettled in America through official channels, backed by bosses who appreciated their abilities, kin they had grown close to, or spouses they had wed. Thousands built fresh existences here. These newcomers thrived impressively. They launched enterprises, especially in culinary sectors and commerce linking Italy and the U.S. They nurtured ties between the two countries that aided recovery and commerce in the aftermath. Ex-POWs and their offspring rose to notable positions in American life. They served as jurists, entrepreneurs, armed forces personnel, and civic figures. Their progeny, blending Italian roots with American upbringing, connected societies in distinctive manners. In the present day, tangible traces of the Italian POW era endure throughout the U.S. At Camp Hereford, a modest chapel erected by the captives in 1945 endures. Built to commemorate 5 individuals who perished there, it boasts concrete crafted to mimic marble and acts as a gathering spot for kin. Bocce courts from California to Massachusetts stem from Italian POWs who popularized the sport. Italian celebrations in unexpected spots like Texas and Utah honor this heritage. Dishes passed on by POW chefs persist as cherished heirlooms. Yet the real legacies lie in the households and locales reshaped by these encounters. Commercial links forged in the 1940s persist across 3rd and 4th generations. Twinning arrangements between U.S. and Italian municipalities arose from POW associations. Scholars view the Italian POW saga as exceptionally effective in turning adversaries into partners. Rather than relying on indoctrination for reshaping views, these Italians transformed via direct involvement, observing U.S. freedoms and affluence up close. Various elements fueled this achievement. Italy's capitulation in 1943 shifted POW standing from foe to ally in the fight. Vibrant Italian-American networks offered familiar links. The common Catholic beliefs among Italians and Americans fostered unity. Pre-war hardships in Italy's economy left POWs open to new paths. The plenty and generosity in America debunked fascist narratives. Comparing to German POWs proves revealing. Germans frequently clung to Nazi beliefs amid comparable handling, whereas Italians broadly adopted American principles. Such variances arose from societal traits and the moment of Italy's yield. The Italian POW narrative left a deep mark on both countries. For the U.S., it illustrated how compassion and wealth could capture loyalties. For Italy, the repatriated POWs delivered expertise that bolstered democratic growth and financial rebound post-war. Former POWs aided in forging economic bonds between Italy and America, promoting exchange and funding. They disseminated U.S. farming and production methods that, in a contemporary Italian production. Above all, these sites held recollections of democracy operating smoothly, serving as blueprints for Italy's governance after the war. The initiative thrived by emphasizing examples over mere instruction. Italian POWs observed American society running smoothly while handling foes with respect. They beheld industrial output that guaranteed triumph. They encountered living conditions that laid bare the illusions peddled by fascism. From the 1970s onward, ex-Italian POWs held get-togethers in the United States. Such events honored personal growth and bonds of camaraderie instead of confinement. The 1988 gathering at Camp Hereford attracted hundreds of ex-prisoners and thousands of locals who remembered them. Veterans shared stories of appreciation for U.S. compassion, of existences reshaped by internment, of rivals turning into kin. Their accounts highlighted how their detention proved a blessing, unlocking paths to democratic values, wealth, and lasting ties. During these meetups, aging veterans who once fought as Mussolini's troops hugged American overseers who evolved into enduring companions. Their descendants, both American and Italian, frolicked side by side, embodying true harmony. What made Italian POWs describe U.S. facilities as near heavenly? Not the comfort of detention itself, but the unveiling of horizons they had never envisioned. They realized affluence stemmed from liberty, not domination. That variety built resilience rather than frailty. The democratic systems outperformed authoritarian rule. They saw everyday Americans thriving beyond the reach of Italian elites. They noted laborers with their own vehicles, farmlands equipped with tools, plants churning out plenty. They felt benevolence from adversaries that their homeland's regime had withheld. This idyllic view stood in stark contrast to the era of conflict, famine, and deceptive rhetoric. U.S. sites delivered nourishment, security, and honor. Relative to the ruins and perils back in war-torn, occupied Italy, America symbolized promise and potential. The Italian POW saga left an indelible mark on American traditions. Pizza, today a billion-dollar sector, gained traction in part through POW chefs instructing locals on genuine recipes. The espresso trend, predating Starbucks by years, spread via Italian captives introducing genuine brews to unfamiliar palates. Across rural U.S. communities, Italian-themed festivals marked ties forged in POW days. In Hereford, Texas, the yearly POW assembly evolved into a local custom. Amid California's Central Valley, vineyards established by ex-POWs or their offspring craft vintages, with methods imported from Italy. Language exchanges proved profound. Countless Americans picked up Italian from POWs, fostering a cohort of speakers who eased post-war commerce and cultural links. Italian terms seeped into everyday speech, especially around cuisine and farming. Past the direct $230 million from their labor, Italian POWs spurred enduring economic links. Ex-detainees who naturalized as citizens or nurtured trade ties enabled billions in commerce between the two nations. Farming skills they acquired and applied back home aided Italy's agricultural rebound after the conflict. Factory practices they noted shaped Italian industry, fueling the economic boom of the 1950s and 1960s. U.S. enterprises gained from networks with former POWs versed in dual heritages. Import-export operations, culinary ventures, and production alliances bloomed from camp-borne connections. Research on ex-Italian POWs uncovered striking mental health results. In contrast to other captive groups plagued by enduring scars, those held in America exhibited fewer instances of melancholy and PTSD compared to uncaptured Italian troops. Experts link this to key elements: superior care surpassing predictions, purposeful tasks instilling meaning, community involvement curbing loneliness, learning chances sparking optimism, and the shift from foe to friend following Italy's capitulation. These effects rippled to households. Offspring of ex-POWs frequently recalled their dads viewing internment favorably, a rarity in wartime tales. Such upbeat narratives shaped home lives and global outlooks for years to come. The narrative of Italian POWs in America illustrates how conflict can yield surprising shifts. Soldiers who entered bearing Mussolini's banner departed as champions of self-rule. Adversaries turned allies, captives evolved into collaborators, with many eventually joining American ranks. Via everyday gestures, offering meals, tending wounds, permitting faith practices, facilitating family letters, America swayed opponents more potently than any ideological campaign. Italian POWs glimpsed U.S. society in its finest light and yearned for that abundance and liberty in their homeland. Their contributions extended far past mere manual work. They infused vitality into American traditions, fortified Italian-American enclaves, and forged enduring links between countries that persist to this day. The offspring of those individuals, residing in either Italy or the United States, represent the potential for harmony and camaraderie following strife. The Italian service personnel located their near utopia not within the confines of the detention sites, but in the enlightenment of what a society might accomplish via democratic principles and liberty. Upon returning to Italy, they bore the germs of renewal that aided in erecting a democratic state amid the wreckage of fascism. Ultimately, the 50,000 Italian troops seized in North Africa encountered in U.S. detention what Mussolini's regime could never deliver: self-respect, prospects, and optimism. They dubbed it paradise, not due to its flawlessness, but because it demonstrated that flawlessness was attainable. Via their profound change, adversaries turned into kin, and two countries cultivated a bond that spans eras. Their heritage serves as a testament that amid the bleakest phases of conflict, human compassion can triumph, that benevolence can succeed where armaments fail, that revealing to foes a superior path might convert them into allies. The Italian service members who uncovered paradise in America demonstrated that mending divides is feasible, that the model of democracy holds immense sway, and that extending respect to opponents can produce a triumph more enduring than any conquest on the field of battle. The detention facilities have largely vanished, reclaimed as agricultural land or transformed into residential areas. Yet in Hereford, Texas, a modest chapel remains upright. In California, bocce courts resound with echoes of Italian speech. Across numerous U.S. locales, households delve into ancestries tied to an Italian serviceman who encountered paradise in confinement and opted to remain. They entered as fighters from a crumbling realm. They departed as architects of a free society ahead. They came as detainees. They unearthed paradise. And through that revelation, two countries forged an alliance impervious to warfare or the passage of years.